The fish icons on your screen aren't fish. They're a software guess, and that guess is number 7 on this list. 7 things a tournament pro reads on that same screen that you walk right past. Here's what nobody tells you when you drop $1,500 on a unit. It's shipped on automatic, and automatic was never built to show you everything. It was built to look clean and idiot-proof sitting on a shelf. 7 reads, 1 screen you already own, and a 5-minute fix I'll hand you at the end. So this is the plan. The 7 things your screen is already telling you, and the settings that unlock them. Plus, the one part that matters more than the whole unit combined. So let's start with number 7, because it's the fastest win you'll get all day. Your unit has a mode called Fish ID, and it stamps a clean little fish symbol wherever it thinks something's swimming. But that symbol is just software reading a blip and taking a wild swing. It'll tag your jig, a weed clump, a downrigger ball, even a trail of bubbles. Turn Fish ID off, and you'll finally see the raw returns the pros actually read. It looks messier at first, but messy is honest. Your call, but every serious angler I know killed that setting years ago. Number 6 is the pulse itself, and this is where a lot of owners get sold a myth. You've heard CHIRP sonar gives a sharper picture, and it does, but not for the reason the box implies. CHIRP, usually written compressed high-intensity radiated pulse, though you'll also see radar pulse, just means a swept pulse instead of a single tone. Traditional sonar pings one frequency. CHIRP sweeps across a whole range, then does the sharpening math on the way back in. So it doesn't see more fish. It separates the ones already there. So 2 bass hugging the bottom stop blurring into one fat smudge, worth knowing before you pay up for it. Number 5 is the cone, and it's wider than you picture it. A low frequency like 50 kHz throws a wide cone, deep but blurry. A high frequency like 200 kHz narrows it down toward 15 or 20 degrees, shallower but sharp. And here's the part that fools people every trip. On a plain 2D screen, that fish that looks like it's right under your boat might not be. It could be sitting well off to the side, still inside that cone. The wider the cone, the more water you cover, but the less you know about where the fish actually is. Match your frequency to your depth, and you stop guessing. Number 4 might sting a little, because it's the most repeated mistake on the water. An arch on your screen is not a picture of a fish. It's geometry, plain and simple. As a fish crosses your cone, it sits closer to the transducer in the middle than at the edges, so the return draws that curve. You only get a full arch if the boat or the fish is moving and it crosses the whole cone. A fish sitting still under a still boat shows up as a flat line, not an arch. And a long arch does not mean a big fish. Length just means it hung in the cone longer. Size shows up as thickness and how bright the mark burns, not how wide it stretches. I know that one gets argued to death in the comments, but the manufacturers back it. Number 3 is really 2 settings, and they're the biggest defaults nobody ever touches. First, gain. Gain isn't power heading down. It's how sensitive the unit is to the echoes coming back, a lot like squelch on a radio. Auto gain keeps a tidy picture, but tidy hides the faint stuff, the bait, the thermocline, the fish pinned tight to bottom. Bump it up manually toward 75% and back off just before the screen gets busy. Second, depth range. Auto often shows 0 to 60 feet when you're fishing 25, squashing everything into a thin sliver. Set that range by hand and your targets get big and readable. Now notice the pattern. Fish ID, auto gain, auto range. 3 of these 7 are the same enemy. The unit shipped on automatic, and automatic's whole job is to look clean, not to show you what's really down there. Number 2 is the stuff hiding in plain sight, and once it clicks, you can't unsee it. That fuzzy horizontal band sitting across your screen at a steady depth isn't clutter. It's the thermocline, the layer where the water temperature breaks hard. And in summer, the bait and the fish stack right along it. Crank your sensitivity, and it'll show itself. And while you're reading the water column, read the bottom too. A hard rocky bottom throws back a strong echo, and you'll often catch a faint second line at exactly twice the depth, a kind of double bounce. Soft mud swallows the sound, and that second echo fades away. That second return is the most reliable hardness tell there is. way better than squinting at how thick the bottom line looks. And number 1 separates the people who know from the people who just repeat. The most important part of your whole rig isn't the screen at all. It's the transducer, the puck that actually makes and hears the sound. A company called Airmar, up in New Hampshire, builds the transducers, or the guts of them, inside a huge share of the major brands. So when someone in the comments says Airmar makes the transducer, they're mostly right. But here's the nuance that actually wins the argument. It isn't all of them. The exception is Humminbird, building its own mega imaging and dual spectrum units in-house. And Garmin builds its own LiveScope. So the honest answer is Airmar for a lot of the traditional units, but not Humminbird's imaging and not Garmin's LiveScope. The transducer sets the ceiling on your picture. The head unit just decides how much of that ceiling you get to see. And figuring out which transducer actually talks to which unit and which used ones are worth buying is its own rabbit hole. I keep a file on exactly that, and that's the whole 7, but the point was never to make you feel dumb for running factory settings. It's to hand you the 5-minute fix, because none of this matters if you never change a thing. So here's the exact order a tournament angler uses to set up a unit they've never touched before. First, kill fish ID, so you're reading reality instead of a cartoon. Second, take gain off auto and nudge it to that just before busy sweet spot. Third, set your depth range by hand to the water you're actually sitting in. Fourth, pick your frequency for the job. Wide and low to search deep, narrow and high for detail up shallow. And fifth, switch to a high contrast color palette so the faint marks jump out. That's it. 5 moves, about 5 minutes, and the same exact hardware suddenly shows you a different lake. Want to know what the pros are actually fighting over right now? It's forward-facing sonar, the live view stuff like LiveScope, Active Target, and Mega Live. It shows fish, and even your lure, moving in real time, 60 to 80 feet out in front of the boat. It works so well that the tours are reining it in. This season Bassmaster allows it in only 5 of their 9 elite events. Over at Major League Fishing, they limit it to 1 window a day, checked with lockboxes and onboard cameras. It isn't banned, it's just so effective they had to fence it in. You don't need it to outfish the guy who never left auto, but it tells you exactly how much all of this really matters. So here's the core of it. Your unit was never the problem. It was tuned to look clean on a shelf, not to show you what's living under your boat. The tournament guys aren't running secret hardware. They just flat refuse to let the screen guess for them. Read the raw returns, trust the thickness over the arch, respect that second echo, and remember the transducer is the part that carries the picture. Do that, and you'll walk the ramp reading your screen better than most of the boats tied up around you. And honestly, that kind of quiet confidence is what puts fish in the box. Everything I dug up on transducer cross-compatibility and how to value a used unit before you buy is in the Marine Electronics Survival Guide. I learned that one the expensive way. After buying a used finder that needed a transducer, nobody stocked anymore. One bad used unit is a few $100s gone. Next time I'm breaking down the reels that still outfish gear 4 times their price, and one of them sells used for almost nothing. YouTube thinks you'll like these next 2 videos, so click 1. And if you made it to the end, go ahead and subscribe.